Lacy, what do you have to say for yourself?
She's the queen of the con game.
Lacy, a lot of people are accusing you of ripping them off.
Her name is Lacy Johnson. She's also known as Lacy Hall. The former LA resident is a fugitive on the run, wanted here in LA for identity theft, residential burglary, and grand theft. She's even accused of faking a breast cancer diagnosis for money. Johnson is also believed to be behind this charity website that donates to soldiers overseas. The group is called Care Package Bears. We've learned it's not a registered or recognized nonprofit.
This right here has to be one of the worst cancer fakers that I think I've ever seen on the internet. And that is no stretch of the imagination at all. Now, Stacy Johnson here, who also goes by her other identities in which she scammed people in the past, Lacy Hall, Lacy McAllister, and also Lacy Ann Marble, ended up scamming over 50 people. Some of those people also being her best friends, family members, and even a church that she went to. And at the end of the video, I feel like you guys are going to be pretty shocked to see what kind of an outcome Lacy here got after she got caught. Today's comment shout out goes to Sally Violet 698. Thank you for your comment. If you guys want a comment shout out in the next video, please make sure to leave a comment down below saying best video yet. And I'll pick one of you in tomorrow's shout out. Now let's hear what her best friend had to say about all of this after being scammed from Lacy.
I met Anne in college, and we became instant friends.
Dorinda has known Lacy all her life.
She was just as cute as she could be. She was very feminine.
Dorinda was so close to the Johnsons, they asked her to act as Lacy's legal guardian should anything ever happen.
And I said, yes, I would, but I also laughingly said, don't let anything happen.
But unfortunately, something did in fact happen. Lacy's mother died of cancer, which makes it just even harder to try and fathom or understand why someone then could fake something like this. You know what the outcome is. You know and you see how it affects people as you've literally had a first row seat to experiencing it. And yet, despite all of that, you have quite literally gone and faked something like this, which is unbelievably disrespectful to your own mum who died of the horrible disease.
I saw her as my daughter. She came to me and stating that she had untreatable cancer. At that point in time, it was lung cancer, which is what her mother passed from. And the only thing that would counter it would be experimental treatments in Tijuana.
It was legit, and so thought Dorinda were Lacy's claims of being sick.
Of course, we've mentioned this a few times, but why would you have to feel the need to second guess someone when they say something like this? If someone says to you that they have cancer, you don't want to then assume the worst, that they're lying, because common sense says, why would someone lie about this? Especially someone who has had their own mother die of cancer. You might be also thinking as well along the lines of, well, it probably runs in the family at this stage, seeing that Lacy's mother also died of cancer not that long ago. And out of anyone, she would not be the type of person to fake something like this. Now, although she said the place in which she got her treatment was legit, you're going to see later on in the video that she told a church that she also had to get treatment from a place but messed up greatly, as she said it was a Mayo Clinic in New York, which doesn't exist.
I knew the family history. And so I just assumed that it was true. I didn't have any reason not to believe it.
Then came the plea for money. Dorinda just couldn't refuse the young woman she considered to be her own daughter, even on her limited retirement income.
I think it's so disgusting to see this, and I'm sure the majority of you watching this video would totally agree. Taking full advantage of an elderly woman and taking her money away from her pensions that she has literally been working her whole entire life to get. And you can just sit there willingly, also at the same time doing the ultimate disrespect from your own mother, in which you're now faking cancer, to then on top of that go a step higher and then start taking money from a woman who sees you as her own child, which therefore you see as your own mother. And you just willy-nilly just take the money out of her hand and not feel any remorse or any regret. I don't know if there's some kind of mental illness that happened after losing her mother. I'm sure there probably is, because no normal or sane person could have done something like this, in which Lacy took in the end over $28,000, which is a lot of money, especially considering this was over the course of a pretty short time period. Also, you don't get that much money from your pension, but Lacy insisted that she will pay this back. Now, I'm sure as the old lady was considering it, kind of knew that that wasn't going to be the fact and probably wasn't actually expecting that neither. Because, well, of course, Lacy's told her that she has incurable cancer and that she needs this money for treatment that can subside maybe some of the side effects. But she started to have her suspicions when she went to meet up with Lacy and Lacy wouldn't show up, and also then disconnected her cell phone, as she says here.
She wouldn't show up when we were supposed to meet. And then the very last day I called her and her cell phone was disconnected. And I think that's when reality hit.
Which must be an absolute soul-crushing feeling to realize you just got scammed from your daughter. Well, a girl that you perceive as your own daughter. Going back to the church though, and how then she even scammed a church. Apparently no one is off limits at this point. But then I guess we should have known that after she disrespected her own mother and took money from an elderly woman. So really, does this come as any surprise at this point?
Lacy and her family were very active in the temple and part of a close-knit family of congregants.
I watched Lacy grow up. I watched her older brother Morgan get bar mitzvah here at the temple.
Ronnie Rozenkova, whose own mother passed from cancer, led the fundraising brigade.
And I can only imagine how somebody who's 30 years old and is sick from cancer, how she feels and how her family felt.
In which now it gets even worse because you are now scamming someone who had a family member that also died from cancer. Now, I feel like when I make these videos, the amount of comments and how enraged a lot of you guys are, I can definitely feel that. You know, even just watching this video, it enrages you. And obviously you had no part in this. So imagine how these people must feel, especially knowing that this information has now come out. But then Lacy's story started to change. So in the beginning, she said that she had lung cancer, which had spread to the brain. But now, after talking to the church about all of this, it's changed again to breast cancer, as she then proceeded to tell them that she needed treatment from the Mayo Clinic in New York City. But like I already mentioned earlier, that doesn't exist. Although the church wasn't aware of this at the beginning, so they donated money regardless.
I jumped right away to do whatever I could to help, especially when I heard that she needs to go to a special treatment in New York and that she didn't have enough financial support.
And then that's when, after the fact of them donating the money to Lacy, she, what do you know, goes missing again. She disappears, not to be seen, like the Mayo Clinic in New York City, just vanishes.
I started inquiring about her situation. How is she doing? How is the treatment? And nobody was willing to give me any information, or nobody knew anything about her progression in the treatment.
Which must be so horrible to know. And to get burnt like this, now I feel like that's totally the normal reaction to have. If you've had someone in your family die from cancer, in which then a girl in her early 30s, a young girl, comes forward in a church and then you've donated money, for one, it definitely burns you in the future and doesn't make you ever want to do this again. Takes money away from people that actually need this help, which is disgusting in itself. But when I see this woman here willing to donate money and help, for me, that seems like the logical answer, like the normal response to have when someone in your family has gone through this.
If Dorinda Gardner and the people of Temple Beth Emet were beginning to feel used, they were not alone. Far from it.
I Googled her name to find out if there was any posting. And that's when the website popped up about bring Lacy Johnson to justice.
Which isn't exactly something you want to see after that person has just claimed that they had cancer and taken roughly $28,000 from you. Just what an absolute sinking feeling that must have been. But oh, it gets a hell of a lot worse, because on that website, fake stories, fake sub-stories, stories in which she's then stolen lots of money from different people, stories in which then she says that she has different types of cancer, and like that's not already bad enough, she does something else as well. Sets up a charity for veterans, a fake charity, in which she then steals that money as well. Look, I wasn't joking when I said this is probably one of the worst fakers I've ever seen. Normally they scam one or two people, or maybe a group of people that don't normally exceed more than 5, 10 really pushing it. Lacy Johnson scammed over 50 people for roughly $500,000. Now we're going to listen to some stories from her exes, because apparently being just the biggest piece of shit in the world already wasn't enough for Lacy. She also had to mistreat her ex-boyfriends on top of everything else that she's already done. And this is what they had to say about a lovely lady.
She gave me a story about her dad having stage 4 colon cancer.
Over time, Lacy tells Daniel she lost her grandmother, father, uncle, and cat.
All right, I will say this. The first three were sad, but the cat? Really? What'd the cat do? Oh, was he not convinced enough? Like, you've just told every single person in your family has died from cancer. Was he not convinced? I didn't have him. I didn't really have him, but it wasn't until I mentioned the cat did he really fall for me. So stupid.
Did 15 grand to pay bills.
She said that she had spent her money on bills, rent, her father's medical care.
Which is bad enough, but the story for this next one, for her next victim, her next boyfriend, what a lovely lady, eh? Oh my God, what a keeper. This story is even worse than that.
Do you still love her?
No.
No?
No.
Because?
Because of what she's put me through.
Clinton was once engaged to Lacy. She used his name and social security number to open 3 credit cards without his knowledge and put him over $40,000 in debt.
Now, have you ever applied for a Citibank credit card?
Never.
How about a Discover card?
Never.
And a Chase credit card?
Never.
Now, one of the terrible things about all of this is the fact that Lacy here just doesn't really seem to understand the seriousness of this situation, as she feels as if she's entitled to this money and in her eyes hasn't done anything wrong here, which just from the story alone on which we've covered and how terrible it is, I'm really struggling to understand the fact how you couldn't feel just a little bit bad from all the things that you've done. Look, if I'm being honest, after 20 seconds of this video, I would have already been starting to feel the guilt a little bit. Not Lacy though, as she appears in court unamused or unbothered whatsoever by the seriousness of the situation.
Clinton would even file a report.
Clinton sensed something was fishy when the key to the mailbox went missing from the kitchen drawer. He says Lacy stole it, hid the key in her purse, and watched that mailbox like a hawk.
I could tell that there was a problem because when I went to check the mail, she stood on the front porch and watched me. And then when I came back, she said she was waiting for something.
Clinton claims he knew for sure Lacy was up to no good the day he got a call from a private investigator.
That she wasn't who she said she was.
Now, of all these stories so far, I feel the fact of just how horrible it must have felt after every time these people discovered who Lacy really was, with the godmother Googling Stacy and seeing bring Stacy to justice. And then for this guy here to get a phone call, a private phone call from a private investigator telling him that your girlfriend isn't who you think she really is. I couldn't think of anything worse than that. And for Lacy, none of this really matters. The fact that she has utterly destroyed these people's lives, as if like faking cancer in the first place isn't already a big enough of a terrible thing to do in the first place. Now, one of the craziest parts of all of this is the next part. So Daniel, one of her exes, thought maybe he could make an honest woman of Lacy here and actually criminally prosecute her. Having maybe that threat dangling above her head of going to jail will maybe set her on a straight path after they had broken up. So you would think, scare her a little bit at least to maybe straighten her out a bit, because this isn't normal behavior and she's ruined a lot of people's lives at this point, as he also has now seen the website in which loads of people have come forward talking about how Lacy has scammed them. But the most craziest part of all of this, he found a personal ad on Craigslist in which he kind of recognized the type of writing style in the ad itself. He then brought a prepaid phone and using it in different disguise as the name of Jeff, he then decided to text the person on the Craigslist. And sure and behold, it was Lacy trying to scam someone else again. He knew this because she literally sent a picture of herself and started talking about how her dad has cancer and she needs money. Like, how many times can you physically do this until you start feeling a little bit of guilt? Like, is that just a complete psychopath? Like, were those tendencies there in the beginning, or is this something that she's literally just adopted? I don't know. It's crazy to me. And that's all going on while the fear of her going to jail, she is still doing this. Now, I know this video has been overwhelmingly negative. In fact, I don't really come bringing any good news or anything after stating that, because it's going to get a hell of a lot worse. So Lacy here went to court, testified not guilty, got found to be guilty, in which these were the charges: 6 months in jail, 30 days of community service, 30 days of community labor, and she only has to pay back $127,000, even though she ended up scamming people out of $500,000. And that's only through the money that we know about. There could have been other scams on top of that that people had never figured out or found Stacey to be guilty of. And after that's all said and done, she only has 5 years of formal probation, and that's it. I feel like it's a very common occurrence with stories like this that the people that end up doing the scamming never have to pay back the full amount, which sends such a bad precedent of you can do this and it seems like you're gonna make money. Like, if you scammed over $500,000 from people and you're only having to pay back like 20% of that, sounds pretty good. How is this gonna deter people in the future from doing stuff like this? Now, I know I've been saying that this video has no happy ending or has no happy outcome, but there is one thing that actually is kind of nice to watch. So as we end this video and it being just an overall shit show of the worst human being I think I've ever seen on the internet, I do want to leave you guys with this. Before I do that though, if you guys could please make sure to hit the like button, leave a comment down below, subscribe and hit the bell button, as that helps the algorithm and me massively, and I would really appreciate it. I think you guys enjoy these types of videos, so let me know and I'll do more of them in the future. Now I'll leave you with this as the reporter hunts Lacy down and then Lacy gets her car towed away. Yes! A little bit of a win. A little bit of a W. And I'll see you guys all in the next video. Bye-bye.
Did you have cancer? I'm sorry if you did, but if you didn't, tell us. Watch as Lacy tries to dodge us by ducking into the valet booth. Lacy's not talking, but she's not leaving either. Her car is missing.
Her car get towed?
Yes.